Hello everyone, welcome to Puzzle League and another tutorial episode of the Variety Sudoku Intermediate Series. My name's Eric, and today we'll be looking at the Diagonal Sums Sudoku puzzle. First, we'll go over the rules together to make sure we understand the puzzle. Then we'll take a look at the workbook solving guide, and finally, I'll solve a complete problem from the beginning. Let's begin. So the rules are just like those of classic Sudoku, with one additional rule. The circled numbers represent the sum of the numbers along that diagonal. In this 6x6 example, the 4 inside the bubble represents the sum of the cells along the diagonal that the bubble points towards. We can see that the line coming out of the bubble is in this direction, and the cells along this line, 1 and 3, sum to 4. Pretty simple. Let's go through this example together. If you're following along, go to page 94 of your Variety Sudoku Intermediate Workbook. I'll be explaining each of the 4 progressions. In this first progression, let's take a look at this first block, specifically the blue cells here. We know that the only 2 numbers that sum to 3 that are available to us are 1 and 3, so they must go in these blue cells. However, we don't yet know which number goes where. If these blue cells are occupied by the numbers 1 and 3, we know that the remaining cells must be filled with the numbers 2, 4, 5, and 6. Number 6 of the first block must be placed in this first cell, due to the 6s in the second row and third column. Also, the number 4 of this first block must also be placed in this yellow cell, due to the 4 in the third column, and since these blue cells are filled by 1 and 3. We know that the yellow cells must sum to 7, as indicated by this bubble here. So, the remaining 2 cells must contain 1 and 2. And due to the 2 in the third row, the 2 must be placed here and the 1 here. Now, once we have done that, we know for sure that the 1 in the blue cell must go here and the 3 here, due to the 1 that we just placed down below. For the yellow cells in block 2, the only numbers available to us that sum to 7 are 2 and 5. 1 and 6 would sum to 7, but there already exists a 6 in the second block, and 3 and 4 also sum to 7, but both 3 and 4 appear in the second row. So there's no way we would be able to place one of them in this cell. Due to the 2 in the first row, we can place the 2 and 5 as shown here. In this third progression, the second block is still missing the number 1. But due to the number 1 in the first row, we know that the second block's number 1 must be placed in this last empty cell in the bottom half of the block. Then, the only 2 numbers that would sum to 11 when added to 1 are 4 and 6, which are shown here in red. And we must place the 6 here and the 4 here, due to the 6 that's already in the second block. And in a similar manner, we can complete the rest of the puzzle. Now I'll be solving workbook example 97 from the beginning. If you haven't done so already, I encourage you to pause the video and try it yourself first, then come back if you get stuck or if you want to know how I solve these problems. Okay, so I want to start with the lower part of the puzzle, since it has a few numbers already placed, as well as a higher concentration of diagonal sum lines that we can use as clues to help us start. Let's take a look at block 5. In block 5, we're missing the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. We know the numbers in these 2 cells must sum to 3, which tells us that they must contain 1 and 2. But due to the number 1 in the 5th row, we know that the 1 in this block must be placed here and the 2 here. This diagonal sum must sum to 14, but with the 5 already having been placed, we know that these 2 cells must sum to 9. The only 2 numbers we have that sum to 9 are 3 and 6, but we don't yet know which goes where. So I'm just going to write them in the corners, just like this. Remember, this is 3 and 6, not 36, so maybe I'll do that. Now, we know that the last cell here must contain the last missing number, which is the 4. Taking a look at block 6, we see that it's missing 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The only numbers that sum to 5 are 2 and 3, because 1 and 4 wouldn't work since 1 is already used here. But due to the number 2 in the 5th row, we must place the 2 here and the 3 here. This also tells us that the 3 and 6 of the 5th block are placed like this. We can also place the 4 in this cell due to the 4 already in the last row. So we can put that there. The 6 must go here due to the 6 in the 4th column. And finally, the number 5 goes in the last cell here. For this sum of 17, we know that at least 2 6s must be placed along this diagonal. How do I know that? Well, 2 of the 3 cells along the diagonal are in the same block. So I know I can repeat one number twice. I can put one number in this cell and another of the same number in one of these 2 cells. Also, 17 is quite a large number. 3 times 6 is 18, which is only greater by 1. Therefore, I know that I must use 2 6s and 1 5 to sum to 17. There is simply no other combination of 3 numbers between the numbers 1 and 6 that can give us such great a sum. Now, due to the 6 in the 2nd row, I can place the 6s here and here along this diagonal, and the 5 here. Now we know that 6 plus 6 is 12, added to 5, that equals 17. Let's take a look at the first block. It's missing the numbers 1, 3, and 4. But due to the 4 in the first column, we know that we must place the 4 in this cell here. However, I don't yet know which of these 2 cells contains the 1 and the 3. Going over to the second block, we can either place a 2 and 3 here, or a 1 and 4 for the diagonal sum of 5. But how do we know which combination we must place? Let's try placing the 2 and 3 like this. In this case, I now know that the 1 and 3 in the first block must be placed like this. Now, if you take a look at the second row, it's only missing the number 4, and we're forced to place it in this cell here. However, the number 4 already exists in the 4th column, down below in the last block. This will conflict and break the rules of classic Sudoku. So, we now know that 2 and 3 was the wrong combination to use for this diagonal sum. Let's go back. Instead, let's use the numbers 1 and 4, just like this, keeping in mind the 1 and 4 down below here. And now in this block, we're left to place 2, 3, and 5. Due to the 5 already in the 4th column and the 2nd row, we must place the 5 here. Due to the 2 in the 2nd column, we must place the 2 here. And finally, the 3 goes in the last cell here. Now this also tells us that the 3 in the first block must come in this top cell, and the 1 must be placed here. If we take a look at the last column now, we see that the only number it's missing is 2, so we can fill that in. And now I'm going to take a look at each of these columns in the middle and determine which numbers are missing. So the second column is missing the numbers 2 and 3. This one is missing the numbers 1 and 4. Here we are missing 3 and 4. And this fifth column, we are missing 5 and 6. Well, we see that there's number 2 in this third row, So the 2 in the second column must be placed here, and the 3 here. Similarly, the 1 in the third column must go here, and the 4 here. The 4 must be placed here, the 3 down here, the 5 up here, and the 6 in the very last cell. And there we go! We finished the puzzle. As always, we have to make sure that each row, column, and block contains each number from 1 to 6. And for diagonal sum Sudoku, we have to make sure that the numbers in the cells along each diagonal, indicated by the bubble, sums to the number inside the circle. As always, the solutions are in the back of your workbook, but make sure you try the puzzle yourself first. I hope that helped.